Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Two Psychics. This is Michael Edley, evidential medium and mystic, discussing all things spiritual.
Hello, I'm Mary Amy of Two Psychics, an intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you. Well, hello everyone. Here we are. It's July 25th, 2024. This is Two Psychics, episode 25. It's about spirituality, and we have a wonderful guest, Dr. DeeAnna Merz Nagel, who's a psychotherapist and psychic. And where are you, Michael? Are you out there?
I am here. I am hanging out on the Jersey Shore, and I am with you all right now from my office. Yes.
Oh, amazing. I'm in New York, everyone, and I'm in New York, and Michael's in New Jersey, and we have had this just really intense humidity. I'm not complaining because I love the change of seasons. I love the warm weather. You know, it's always nice to have a tan. What's the weather been like down by you?
This week has been pretty nice. For those that like the warmer weather, I think we've been running about 82 degrees. It dropped out of that like 95-degree temperature run we had a week or two ago, which that was a little brutal. So it's been pretty good. The temperatures have subsided a little bit. I've been doing a lot of stuff inside, unfortunately. Haven't been able to enjoy it. But hopefully over the next week or two, I'll be able to get out into it.
Michael, have you sensed a kind of a shift in energies? I have. I don't know what's going on, but it's been delightful for me. I mean, it was up and down and all around. It's coming through in my dreams. In fact, last night I shared with everyone that I am a contactee. I've had extraterrestrials contact me, and it's been quite a while, and I am putting together this new book with all of my contacts. And I had another one last night, which was kind of intense. Like my whole body, it just felt very intense, and I woke up and I think it brings more life into me. I don't know what it's activating, but it's doing something. It's changing my system a bit, and I woke up and then I couldn't go back to sleep.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You know, after you've worked with this energy for a while, it has almost an uplifting effect. It's like when I get done, like last night when I got done with my mediumship gallery I was doing, I literally felt like I drank 5 cups of coffee where I hadn't drank any. So when you're connecting on this type of energy level, it will definitely uplift you. Like the people that are out there going, I feel so drained. Oh, this is sucking, my energy out. Well, they haven't learned how to properly utilize their energy and protect their energy. So it's a process, and it's, something that we can develop over time. But once you get that down, it will definitely uplift you. Like when I have a gallery or I'm doing a large event, there'll be times where I get in and I can't go to sleep. Like I'll be up till, I'll start to write music or I'll, start to create a new workshop. I'm so uplifted and charged from that the divine energy that runs through us. And I think that's how we need to utilize it. It should uplift us. So exactly what you're feeling and that uplifting energy that's flowing through you, I think that tells you that you're on the right track and you're properly utilizing and properly working with that energy. So, and I know, I'll give you an example. When I've been a medium my whole life, but when I decided, my soul keeps on calling me to this, I have to get out into the public, I have to do this. And I wasn't, I basically I was self-taught. I learned all this myself. It was a lot of it was natural, and growing up, there wasn't a lot of information out there. But then I started studying it, learning it, and the first time I did a large event. I mean, it was a benefit. There was a rescue group local in my town, and several of the people that ran that rescue group had private readings with me, and they were like, "Look, we need you to come out, and will you be, the psychic medium for our event?" And sure, I'll do it. It's a great cause, and at that point in time, my business was, involved with rescues and a bunch of different things, as I was part of the pet industry. And what I found was I overdid it. Like I was doing readings, and people, got wind of that, and a lot of people kind of jumped on board. I thought, it wasn't like a large gallery where I was doing a room of, 100, 200 people. This was basically me sitting there providing readings for people one-on-one. And literally I look up and there's a line wrapped around this building for me, literally probably 80 plus people trying to get a reading. So I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And I was like, let me just try to go through. I'm going to just jump into this, and I'm going to push through this, and I'm going to try to do as many readings as possible. And it was almost like rather than coming from a place of balance and grounding and this internal divine spirituality that we should be working from, I was working from the ego. And it was all, ego. How much information can I bring through? How accurate can it be? How much, how many people can go, oh my Lord, that was unbelievable. Oh, that information. Oh. So it was more of an ego-based thing for me. It was the wrong mindset, and it was a process. It was a process to get out of that. It was an unlearning and relearning, in addition to, a number of other self-growth things that I was going through. And I think it was 38 readings in a course of, it was probably about 4 hours. And it was wild. Like I literally was leaving the event, and I got pulled over by an officer of that town. And he's like, sir, you're all over the road. What's going on? And this was, basically this event ended. I jumped it. I didn't give myself a break, no downtime. I didn't recoup my energy. I just jumped in my car and I left. Pulls me over. He's like, well, where were you? And of course it was a large, bar, large, like, facility, banquet, bar, restaurant kind of thing, all in one. And a large place down here at the shore. And the cop's like, look at it. And so I tell him, this is where I was at. So automatically, I'm like, oh, geez, I'm going to tell this guy where I was just at. It's a bar. Is he going to pull me out and try to make me do, some kind of sobriety test? And I'm like, you know what? In normal circumstances, I wouldn't be concerned about it. I'm like, but I am so out of it energy-wise, this guy may think I'm drunk. And I literally called on, my guides, my angelic cousins, and my loved one. And I was like, look, I need something. I need a piece of information to just remove this guy from my energy and get me out of here. And sure enough, they started giving me information about his mother that just passed. And that's why I said, sir, it's going to sound a little crazy, but I'm a medium. I work with energy. I was doing an event. I was one of their entertainers there. And this is going to sound crazy, but I have to ask you about this name. I believe this is your mother. I believe she just passed. And I started bringing through very specific information. And this guy's face turned white. And he tells me, I don't know what you're doing, who you are, what's going on, but please, I'm going to give you police escort out of town. And I don't want to see you back on any of these roads around here for the rest of the night. And literally, I got police escort out of Belmar, New Jersey. And, and that was it. I really, literally, like several days after, I felt very depleted. I didn't protect my energy. I was coming from a place of ego. And it was really about how much information can I pull through? How much, great stuff can come through that I blow these people away. And and it was just not the right approach. And that was a really big learning lesson for me. And I'll tell you, I think it happened that way because that truly, in an instant, made me respect the energy in us, around us, and the energy that can transfer from other people and other environments. And I really, that was probably the door opening to me truly diving deep and wanting to be, the best medium on an evidential accuracy level, but not for ego, but to show people that there's something else, to be of service. When you can heal the grief of someone that lost a child or a parent, a loved one, anything like that, I don't think there's anything else on this planet that can bring the healing that a true evidential mediumship reading can bring to someone going through that grief. And that can truly show them that our loved ones, the physical body dies, but spirit carries on. And spirit wants to connect back to us. Our loved ones want to be around us. They want to positively try to uplift our life. They want to, guide us in the best way for the best possibilities around us. And that was the start of it. And, it was truly a complete mind shift, so that was my experience of truly just blowing my energy out. And it wrecked me for a couple days, but it was the best learning lesson I ever had.
I love this story because this is an extraordinary beginning. And it sounds to me more like you really wanted to help as many people as you could. And I understand where you're coming from, but these experiences, when we are doing this kind of work, we have to have so we can kind of know our limits and our boundaries. And I get what you're saying, and I hear it, because I've done events and I know it's wiped me out when I try to do many readings, and it takes a lot out of you, and it is something that is precious, our energy and our sensitivity, and we kind of have to figure out ways of receiving the information that we're not pushing too hard or forcing anything, and just allowing it to come through. And I've mentioned before over and over that at my first healing fair in New York City, there's one coming up, actually. I don't know if you're going to it, and the Waken Fairs.
Yeah, I saw that, and they reached out to me to be a part of it, and unfortunately, I am booked out that whole weekend already, so I can't. But that was a great, space, and that was really my proving ground. Where I was literally traveling out of New Jersey, because at that point, I was a prominent business owner in multiple communities in town. I had multiple brick and mortar locations. I was on, different advisory boards, Chamber of Commerce. I was, very, very involved in many traditional groups and associations. And my thing was, wow, I know I need to do this. I know this is my soul calling me to do it. I know how much healing can come from it. But what are people going to think? Are people going to think I'm crazy? How do I approach this in the right way? And I really had to prove to myself that, even though I experienced this my whole life, and those that have listened kind of know my story and everything I've experienced through my life, and even with all that, I still had doubt, and I still had to prove it to myself. And that was still part of the ego. It wasn't allowing things to just flow and just take place. But I believe to do what I do now, I had to go through it that way, and I had to kind of unlearn some of it. And the interesting thing is, for such a long period of my life, I thought, the abilities that I had, that was it, and that was the extent of it. And I could do this, and I could bring through great information, and I could, psychically pick up on things, had lots of prophetic, stuff come to me, a number of different things. And, most people would go, hey, this is phenomenal. This is a lot. And this is it. And this is all I need. But I was like, you know what? There's got to be more. There's got to be processes and procedures to this. How can we push through and break barriers around this? And I ended up, just what I say is, when you're on the path and you're trying to draw things into your energy field, you're manifesting law of attraction, any of that, when you do it properly and you truly have that passion burning in your heart, there will be a way. It will find its way to you, and you don't need to know the whole process. You just need to know that end result. And as long as you focus on that end result and you put in the work, absolutely, I would say more often than not, you're going to find doors opening. You're going to find people drawn to you that are a positive connection. Things are going to happen in a very positive way, even in chaotic situations. It may lead to a new enlightened situation that can open up several new doors, or, so there's a reason for all of that. And it's a process. So I had to prove to myself, at that point in time, that I could do this, and it was real, and I could bring through evidence, and it could be validated, and I didn't want to know anything about anyone. In like the Awakened Fair, I didn't even know the names of the people that were sitting in front of me. Like, literally, I had a woman that registered with a fake name, and I didn't even know the names, even though Paula would hand you a sheet, here's your people for the day, or whatever it would be. I didn't pay attention to them. Like, whoever comes in front of me, I don't want to know anything about them. I want to completely be pure on what I'm receiving. I don't want to influence that in any way. And, true evidential mediums, that's how we work. And one lady literally had a fake name, and I started bringing through, the first piece of information I brought through to her was her real name. And she tells me, Mike, okay, I can sit and have the reading with you now. You showed me that you can pull the information through, and you gave me my real name where I didn't sign up with a real name. And I told my loved ones and my guides that the first thing you had to do was bring through my real name. Now, thankfully, I didn't know that, because when pressure like that is put on you as a medium or a practitioner, then I think, our emotions or our ego, things can kind of jump in and kind of get in the way. So the best thing for us to do is have a pure, clean slate and not know anything about the person, and let that energy just come through completely clean and unscathed in any way, and that's how the best readings happen. So I went there, and, lo and behold, I ended up getting pulled in on an NYPD cold case. I was with a detective's wife, and she was just there, for the fun of it, of having a good day out. And I started having all kinds of crazy information come through about her husband's case. Knew nothing about this lady, knew nothing about what was going on. And she's like, do you have availability at the end of the day? I need to bring my husband back. She's like, this information is for him, and you need to talk to him. Lo and behold, like the last reading of the day, guy comes in a suit, and he's, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. What is this? Is this a businessman? Is it, something going on? Is this someone on Wall Street? What's the situation here? And lo and behold, it was a missing persons case. And the guy pulls out a non-disclosure agreement, and he asked, look, you brought through some crazy information. My wife validated how accurate you are, and there's no way you could have known this, because she didn't even know some of this information. And he's like, would you be willing to sign a non-disclosure? You can't talk to this about anyone, but would you be willing to sit with me a couple times and let me see what you can bring to me? He's like, because I can't talk to anybody about this. And if I tell people I went to a medium to try to help me solve a cold case, they're going to think I'm crazy. He's like, but without a shadow of a doubt, the information you brought through, something's going on with you. He's like, I don't know what. And he's like, honestly, I thought my wife was crazy even coming out to this event today. And here I am sitting in front of you. And sure enough, I didn't solve the cold case, but I gave them enough information that led them to the girl's jacket in an alley by a dumpster that I believe in the months to follow led them to finding the body. So unfortunately, it's sad knowing that happened and someone lost their life, but I was very fortunate that I was able to try to bring some type of closure to the family and try to help in that process. And that was probably the first thing that really, really just set me up, really I was on fire at that point. And I was like, you know what, if I can give in that way and bring healing and closure, what other path could my soul be calling me to do? And that was the start of it. And that's where we met. And lo and behold, what was that, 10 years ago or whatever it was, 15 years, it was quite some time ago.
Yes,
and
it was.
We're a radio show together. So that's what I say. Everything, as crazy and chaotic as things may seem when we're in the center, and we're in the eye of the storm, there's always positive possibilities around that. We just have to, shift the mindset. We have to tune in, and we have to allow that divine presence to help guide us. That's what it's there for. That's what our guides, the angelic presence, our loved ones in spirit, they're around us. They want to connect. They want to communicate. Yeah, that was probably my breakthrough moment, knowing that, yep. And everything from that point on was gearing me up to what I do now.
You just have a generous heart, and I know that everyone, regardless if they are tuned into their intuition, sense that from you. I truly believe right now in this time in 2024, we're headed, and I have confidence that our civilization is moving into our niche industry. And by doing this and speaking about psychics and psychic messages and readings and the topics we cover and the guests we have, the wonderful guests, we are really showing more clarity to the viewpoint that your intuition is real. And, we are not special. It's just we've practiced more, or it's come more naturally. But I believe, and I'm excited to have our guest this evening. She's in the green room, and she can discuss a lot of what we're talking about, how many members of the public, can begin to tune into their extrasensory perception or whatever gifts they have. And their experiences are going to be different than mine and Michael's and probably DeeAnna's, but they're going to have some kind of sixth sense within them. And I'm hoping that more and more people learn this aspect of themselves. How about we get into the topic and then we bring DeeAnna on? What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great aspect that we're going to be discussing of, her background. She's a psychotherapist, a wellness coach. She's got a very diverse background and different holistic healing modalities. And that's truly, the incorporation, I think, of the spiritual aspects of wellness and the traditional aspects of wellness. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're going to start to see a shift and a blend. It's going to transition and change. And granted, we have big pharma and we have, the powers that be that want to try to lock that down in holistic modalities. They want to, put the kibosh on some of that and not allow that information to come to light, but that's all about money, greed, power, unfortunately. But I think the information is out there. It's something ancient civilizations knew, they practiced. And yeah, absolutely. Everyone has these abilities. Not everyone is born a medium, I would say, but everyone has the ability to develop these psychic abilities and eventually develop it into mediumship abilities. Just for some people, it's a born thing and they don't lose it. But I mean, there's so many variables around that. If you look at fluoride, all the fluoride they're pumping into these kids, you look at stuff and how that can affect, all the internal organs and how, that can affect our psychic abilities and, so many variables. But I won't ramble on. We'll let Dr. DeeAnna Nagel talk to that, talk to us about that. But I'm very fascinated about some of the topics we're going to be discussing tonight.
Okay, so for our listeners tonight, here we are, episode 25. I'm going to get onto the topic of spirituality. And if you would like, you can check out her website, Dr. DeeAnna Merz Nagel, who's a licensed psychotherapist, a board-certified wellness coach, and certified aromatherapist. Now, she has an extensive background in the healing arts, and she holds several additional certifications, including Reiki. She's passionate about teaching the ethical integration of alternative and psycho-spiritual approaches into practice and has recently co-created the Essential Soul Care or Oracle deck. Her doctoral studies focused on multi-faith spiritual direction. So before we bring her out, we're going to get onto this topic of spirituality. If you'd like to check out her website, DeeAnna Merz Nagel. Now, if you go to our description on our site here on blogtalkradio.com/2psychics and you go to tonight's episode, which is live, here we are live, you can see all of her information, her website, her Facebook, her Instagram. And I'm excited. Now, I know DeeAnna because I actually got my intuitive certification from her online school. All right, so spirituality, big topic. Here we are. Spirituality breathes the mindset of a sacred growth in nature, which ultimately teaches your spirit the meaning of life, known as the inner dimension. Your personal growth is achieved by belief of God source, unity, higher power, universal power. And spirituality exemplifies ordinary limits, meaning beyond the range of perception. In the moment of personal growth, transcendent is a spiritual reality beyond the material world. We have a spirit within us. Yes, we are in this vessel, our human bodies, and we have a brain and thoughts, but we have a spirit, mind, body, spirit. Waking up your true self rises up and above to self-reflection, giving personal experiences related to life's meaning. As you receive and embrace traits of curiosity, kindness, soul, peacefulness to your heart. We've spoken about in the past awakening, ascension. Mystical spirituality is the intuitive part of the soul, a greater meaning for everything that occurs. Suddenly, you're aware of one, choosing unity for all, taking care of others, service to others rather than service to self. A spiritual awakening identifies a higher power after realization that we exist beyond the spiritual world. Now, what are some signs of spiritual awakening? Well, discovery of self, realization of truth, and you're questioning everything. You're waking up and looking around and you're going down those rabbit holes and you're saying, it's not exactly what I thought, what I was told, or what it appears to be. There's something behind the curtain, behind this reality that we're living in. You start understanding your feelings more, emotions. You have self-experience, but not getting caught up on thinking about the past and others' problems and worrying. What are some benefits of spirituality and awakening your spiritual self? You have increased concentration and focus on your goals, dreams, and more self-confidence, and you become aware. You have acceptance and love for others. So how are you to go about this? Well, simply, you can begin to meditate daily, having reflection daily. Start to question time in nature. And what are your thoughts on this subject, Michael Edley?
Well, I'll tell you what was a really interesting thing I was reading over the past few days. There was an article on how most people in today's society, and I think this was prevalently based around the U.S. and Canada, this study they did, that most people can't sit still or can't sit with their thoughts or meditate or do anything for longer than 4 minutes. And even the 4-minute mark is very hard for people to quiet down their mind and go inward. And I think that's a battle that's going on today. You know, people are so distracted. You know, we have access with our cell phone that, you know, it's always in our pocket or it's always on us. So we're always tied in. And I think that's been very detrimental for people being able to separate themselves from the matrix and going inward and, you know, finding their way. And there's so many people distracted. And I can't tell you how many meditation workshops I've been doing or different things where people are like, you know, I can't even do this. I just can't get there. You know, they'll be able to do it when I take them through the guided meditation, and it works well because, you know, they have someone taking them through it and the processes and procedures are all there laid out. But trying to do it on their own, people get very, very distracted. So that's a prevalent problem that, you know, is something that's really going to be an issue in our society moving forward if something in that doesn't change. You know, that for someone doing this work, doing, you know, psychic mediumship, healing, any of this spirituality, there's so much of that is about that inward journey and that process. So if people can't sit still and quiet their mind for more than 4 minutes, look, at 4 minutes is a start. That's good. When I first started doing this, it was probably 4 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. But I can tell you over a process, which was a 2-year process, I literally can go into that state in literally several, you know, in a very, very short period of time. You know, less than probably 3 minutes it takes me to get into that zone to be able to go into, you know, the state of mind I need to be into to do readings. But that was a long, long process that I worked on. So, yeah, it's so important for people to understand, you know, the aspects of spirituality and religion. And I think so much has been manipulated and confused and pulled away from us that we're getting back to it now. And we kind of have to sift through all the information and see what's right for us, see what resonates with us, but truly dive deep and look at, you know, it's like we're the epitome of an eternal student. We constantly need to learn, grow. There may be things that we thought were the way it needed to be, or our processes were a certain way, and we learn and we grow and we change, you know, and that's part of this process of spirituality. It's going inward, it's growing, and it's constantly learning, you know, and we really are eternal students in this world of spirituality. And I think the ones that are and are approaching it that way are the ones that are going to be able to implement the biggest change in this world.
Spirituality really, to me, is so much about love, compassion, nature, and I guess thinking beyond the world. You were speaking about your ego early in this discussion tonight, and I believe spirituality is more about everyone else, how we're all connected, rather than just us singularly. I mean, when we do tune inward, and I make these suggestions about meditating, we're doing it separately. But we do everything, it seems like, separately, and then we all are going to come together with hope and blessings and love and kindness. At least I hope so. I think that the world has gotten to a place, like you mentioned just a minute ago, about attention span, and that has to do with basically the trend that's gone on with the phone. And if that was eliminated, it probably would be a whole heck of a lot easier for people to focus and have concentration, because it is distracting, the scrolling, all the videos, and it's meant to do that. But I believe that if you really are interested and passionate, you can put the phone down and you can just focus, because people do carry on with their jobs, their careers, and they can't be on the phone all the time. So this is just, maybe it's, I don't like to say the word work, but if you practice and you use your intuitive muscle, you work on your senses, you can begin to shift. And what's so interesting is meditation really actually helps you to become more focused. And it's just practice. And I know some people turn away from this because it just seems like, so boring, or they can't do it. But it's just practice. And you can start out by doing it for a few minutes and then get up to a half an hour. Many years ago, I was in a meditation group. It was going back 20 years ago in my town. And there was a meditation room. It had this sacred trunk of a tree. And we would sit there and we'd do meditation, and I learned to do it. And then I just literally could be anywhere on the train going to the city for something related to work, and I could meditate anywhere. So it really is practice.
And there are a lot of things out there now to help people meditate. We have binaural beats, hemisync, all these different aspects that incorporate music to try to get people into that state of mind. And that's what people need to understand. There's tools out there to help us get there. And it's not like you need to sit on a rock, in the forest like a Buddhist monk and pray for 7 days straight and find your Zen. It can be you're engulfed in this painting you're drawing, and, the divine just transcends through you, and you come up with this finished piece of art. You don't even know how it was created, but somehow it came through you, or a piece of music, or, a beautiful structure, or, there's different things. And I think we have this limited focus on what meditation needs to be. And I think that's old mindset. I think people need to understand there's many paths to that inward journey. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, like I said, sitting in the forest on a rock. There's many ways. I think ideally to sit in silence is the purest way. And when you can get to that point, that's when the most significant change is going to happen. But you don't have to start there. There's many different tools that you can utilize to get you there, So that's part of the process what people need to understand. But your life will once you go on this spiritual journey, the life that you knew will never be the same. There's no way it can be, because things just open to you and unfold, and you see things in such a different way that you cannot go back to the way you were. That's just the reality of it. And that's what I would say the most beneficial thing that anyone could do. Someone that's dealing with any kind of, someone's dealing with depression, or someone's dealing with different issues around that, mental issues and problems. When we start focusing in on this energy and we start working with it, many things can come to us, and many healing aspects, like not just psychic information that, I'm going to buy a car and I'm going to know the salesman's lying to me, or there's some deception around that. Yeah, that is one aspect of it. You can absolutely key in on people's emotions and the energy around situations, and you can read that energy, absolutely. But the other aspect of it is, so I'll give you an example. So I don't use a lot of traditional medicine. I'm very holistic. I use a lot of herbs, vitamins, nutrition. So I can tell you, I've had this crazy upper respiratory thing going on for a couple of days. I was around a lot of German people in a club doing, these different musical events and things that were going on in addition to my mediumship stuff. And I got lots of germs spewed on me. I can tell you, rather than go to like a Z-Pack or antibiotics, there's stuff out there, and stuff will come to us naturally. We can research it, but oregano oil out there are dealing with ailments and illnesses types of sickness, germs, viruses. Oregano oil is such a natural antibiotic that we're not even aware of. And it has so many positive properties on the body. And literally, I think it was just, it was honestly, that was my wife's, journey she was on, and understanding that holistic healing aspects that we can incorporate into our life and things that we can incorporate into in conjunction with traditional medicines. But I truly believe a lot of that stuff that she comes across, she's kind of psychically tuned into, and her intuition guides her, and she finds that stuff. And then, then she hooks me up with all of it, and then I can naturally heal, and I don't have to screw up my stomach biome and, be dependent on antibiotics. So, and granted, if certain situations may cause me to feel a little sicker, a little older, and I got to tough it out. But I can tell you, once I get through that, my immune system feels so supercharged. And the jerk comes around and everybody else is sick, usually I won't be. So psychic abilities and spirituality and tuning into this energy and learning, I can tell you lots of information will come to you in many different ways. And that's why your life will never be the same, because it's like you have access to a whole new realm that is just beautiful information that can heal, that can help move you forward in, relationships, business, life. So that's why it's so important for people to understand spirituality just isn't this hokey pokey new age cool thing, and we're just trying to, get on this new age bandwagon. Absolutely not. We're going back to the core of what ancient cultures and ancient civilizations knew. And whether today's society, there's many different aspects, and we can go in then the conspiracy rabbit holes and everything's been manipulated, and we go, into the Rockefeller era of, the early U.S., when he started basically patenting all these prescriptions and pharmaceutical and had that whole shift throughout the country. It's interesting. Those of you that aren't familiar of how the country started shifting from a lot of holistic healing, homeopathic modalities, ancient Chinese medicines, all this stuff that was utilized. Even think about castor oil, all these things that were, it's an old wives' tale. Now when you look into this stuff, there were so many beneficial properties to these things.
Dandelion root. How about dandelion root?
Exactly. So much stuff. And when we go down this journey, it's like all this information will become aware. We'll become aware to information, and it will help us heal. And then we can bring this information to other people, and they can utilize it, and then they can tell someone else. So this is, we are at the forefront of this. People like us, Dr. DeeAnna, and it's so important that we're doing this because the world needs to wake up. And we really are in a divide right now, So spirituality is truly a path of unlocking everything. That's really the only way to put it.
Absolutely. It's funny. We sometimes we forget that what we're doing is worthwhile because, everything in our world here, our physical reality is so much related to about monetary this material world, about how much money you're making, and it's difficult in this industry, and that's why I'm hoping, listening to DeeAnna, she's going to give us some information related to that about, she does have these courses, and it helps you guide you in this industry about having some kind of business. I do believe at some point, and I have faith that divine intervention is coming into play, and our civilization is going to shift into more of an approach towards spirituality, towards tuning into your heart and your senses rather than going by what you see and what you think, because there's frequencies out there. We all operate on a specific vibrational frequency that because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's all kinds of dimensions and realms and spirits and angels and beings.
Just think
and
about
creatures.
electricity. Think about electricity. You can't see it, but if you stick your finger in the socket, you're sure going to know it's there.
And yeah, absolutely. And I'm, just sitting here listening to you, I have to tell you, Michael, it just brings a smile to my face because you are so giving and kind, and you share your truth, and that's not necessarily a popular thing out there. Okay, also, if you would like to reach Michael, you can find him on his website, michaeledley.com. You can see that on our page. Mine is maryamyofficial.com. Michael Edley does give readings. He does do events, many, many readings, many, many events down in the Jersey Shore. I am planning on coming down there in the near future and coming to a few of your events. If you would like to find us on Facebook, we have a page, Two Psychics Radio. And we also, I'm wearing a shirt tonight with your face on my T-shirt, Michael. You can find our merchandise on Two Psychics Spread Shop. Now, DeeAnna Merz, Dr. DeeAnna, and I'm mispronouncing this, and she's going to tell me how to pronounce it. We're bringing her on. Merz Nagel is a licensed psychotherapist and a board-certified wellness coach and certified aromatherapist. You can find her website at DeeAnnaMerzNagel.com. Okay, so let's bring her on, and I'm so looking forward to hearing all about her life as a psychic, life as a psychotherapist, and here she is.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey,
I'm
Dr.
great.
DeeAnna, how are you?
Hi. Hi,
So,
Michael.
can you give us your name so we're not pronouncing it incorrectly?
It's DeeAnna Merz Nagel.
Nagel. Okay.
Okay,
Nagel, yes.
Excellent. I said it correct at the beginning, I think.
Oh, I don't say anything right.
And just call me DeeAnna. So, I've been listening, and I don't think I'm needed. You all got this.
Oh no, we want you. We like you. We want to hear everything. We want to hear how you got there. How did you become in this arena of the world of, intuitives and psychics and mediums, and you have extensive online schools.
It's a 35-year journey. So longer than that, but the first answer would be I don't know, but that's not true. So I when I was a teenager, even before that, well, first of all, I was one of those children that people would say, "Oh, she's touched," because I always knew things. So my first and still my strongest clairsense is claircognizance. So I always just knew things, and I didn't even know how I knew things, but I just knew them. And my friends would come to me and say, "Well, what do you think about so and so?" And my first impression was always what they ran with, and so I just became kind of known for that. I didn't even know what it was called. I didn't know anything about psychic abilities or intuition or any of that. And I was in the world of music. Music was my world. I was a singer. And so early I went to junior college and then transferred to Florida State in Tallahassee, which is where I now live again. And I was a voice major. When I was a voice major, I just wanted to sing. I didn't necessarily want to learn music theory or music history. I just wanted to sing. So to that end, I dropped out and joined a rock band, much to my parents' chagrin. And so for years after that, I was probably in my early 20s. For years after that, I sort of bounced around and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I couldn't get settled. I just could not resonate with anything consistently. I loved my music, but I didn't really like, I would have been a great studio musician, but I didn't like the whole routine of being in the bars and I bartended and, that whole gig I did for a decade. Then I decided to go back to school, and I was also in therapy. And so being in therapy and being at an age where I started connecting some dots, I decided to finish my degree in mental health. And you can't do anything with a bachelor's in mental health, so I decided I would get a master's degree. And what's interesting is I've always been a spiritual person, and even though I was raised in a religious frame, I kind of fit in the religious frame because I didn't know anything different. being boxed in, and I wasn't allowed to color outside the lines. And so when I was thinking about my master's, I actually considered going Presbyterian seminary, getting a master's degree in pastoral counseling. And I'm saying that because I've come full circle with a much wider view of spirituality. But it is true that we always find ourselves going back to what we knew was there. We just didn't know how to identify it. And so anyway, I got a scholarship at University of Georgia in rehabilitation counseling, and that's where I went. So for years, I was a traditional psychotherapist, rehab counselor, forensics, did a lot of forensic evaluations for the courts, worked with family and children, worked in Georgia, moved to New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, exit 117, Michael. Worked there for a dozen years. And at some point, I knew I always used my intuition in my work. And again, I don't know that I had the words to articulate it, but even when I did forensic evaluations for the courts, I would have a hunch, and then I would use valid and reliable instruments to kind of back up my hunch. And 9 times out of 10, I was spot on. I had this knowing that, and that's the only way I could describe it. And then I started traveling around the United States, training people on various counseling topics, and I was good at it. And, you know, I was on my game. I was top of all the things. But I remember one day I was standing in the middle of a workshop. There were probably 50 people. They were doing their little breakouts. And I'm standing there thinking to myself, is this how I want to feel? No, not so much. I'm good at it, so should I keep doing it? But this isn't what I want to feel. Next day, it was a 2-day workshop. I went back and I had the same feeling. I just kept asking myself, you know, is this it? Am I doing my soul's work? And that can get that's really difficult to tease out sometimes when you know you're good at something and you're being of service. Like, okay, well, I'm kind of doing that. But I just kept getting the message that no, that's not it. I got in the car that afternoon and I got a phone call, and the contract that I was on, which was through a university traveling around the United States, was canceled that day. Poof, you're done.
Almost like it was a divine intervention.
Yeah. Because it was the first time I consciously and mindfully put it out there. Right? I had been afraid to...
You changed the outcome.
Yeah. And of course that was kind of a really scary moment, because I was new at this. But anyway, that just started me on a trajectory. And I had some health issues, so I was already doing some holistic work with my own physical health. And of course I was familiar with counseling. And then I just, as we say, I came out of the pixie closet. I remember coming out of a doctor's office with some new diagnosis, and I got in the car and thought, okay, now what? And literally like a neon sign, I saw these words that said, learn Reiki. Reiki? Okay, what is Reiki? I kind of know what Reiki is. Okay, learn Reiki? Okay. So I start looking for local Reiki training, and no, the message was learn Reiki online. You need to learn it online because you're going to teach it online. You're going to teach a lot of things online. Okay, and so that's what I did. I learned Reiki. I became a Reiki master. Then I created a Reiki course. In the meantime, I'm still a licensed therapist, and I'm in private practice. I do clinical supervision. I'm doing all the things, and I was told by many of my colleagues at the time that I was committing professional suicide, that I couldn't do this. Bad girl. You can't do this. It's not in your scope of practice. Okay. And I just kept opening myself up, and I kept learning, and I think the thing that I was reflecting on for myself was that I had these skills, but I didn't have a frame for them. And I was also mingling, so to speak, with a lot of other people at that point that I was introduced to that were healers. And what I found was a lot of them had beautiful gifts, but they didn't have a frame, and they didn't have an ethical frame. So they were out there with the gifts, not really knowing what to do with it. And Michael, I heard you talk about ego. And I think that's a natural place that we come from in 3D. Yep. We come from a place of ego, and that's what we do when we first start out. But unless we hone our skills and unless we believe, this is my belief, unless we really believe that learning is a lifelong endeavor, we're going to stay right there.
Yep, absolutely.
So my impetus for creating many of the courses that I teach was to create a framework, an ethical framework to teach people, be careful of the ego. When you receive information from the universe, from your higher source, from your guides, that information may just be for you. It may not be for the other person. So teasing out how to discern that is part of doing this work. And that was probably a dozen years ago, and I just keep progressing and doing and learning, and it's a beautiful thing. I love what I do. So it took a long time for me to get here, but here I am. And I get to see people grow, and they grow me. And, then I decided, okay, well, I'm using Oracle decks left, right, and center. How about if I just create my own? And that was another incredible experience that I partnered with my colleague, Madison Lee Akridge. And we literally channeled the deck. And it was my first serious, mindful, intentional experience with channeling. So we have this 49-card deck, and if we look at it together and read the guidebook, we don't know who wrote which card. And that's an incredible experience. So that's in a nutshell.
No, that's an awesome story. And what I find fascinating is we have there's a lot of similarities between your story and my story. And I think when we're born with these mediumship abilities, like obviously you are, just like I was, I think that's a process, and it's like an unfolding, and we have to kind of find our way, and it's not always easy. And I think that's one thing our listeners can take away from your story is it's not cut and dry. It's not like the universe is going to drop this in your lap and you know exactly everything and what way to go. It's a learning process, and it's an unfolding. And I think your story is absolutely amazing. And I think people can see the perspective of sometimes, it's going to be a process, and we have to, push forward, and we have to allow that process to unfold. But in that process unfolding, I mean, the unbelievable things that can come from that. You're obviously showing that, and your story definitely legitimizes that process. And it's not going to always be easy. We're going to have to incorporate the light in the dark, and it's a process. But, I love hearing other medium stories, because certain things, I do believe that we're all here for a purpose. And I do believe we are the soldiers on the front line, and we are the people that are going to implement change. And I think people sometimes have this misconception that everything is going to be easy. It's all going to be love and light. And that's not always It's not the case, And I think if we can give people a true perspective and really show people, look, it's a journey, and it's a lifelong journey, I think people can kind of shift their mindset and not have these expectations when they go into this aspect of being spiritual,
Well, and for me, one of the tools, and I heard you mention there are a lot of tools. One of the tools that really popped me open, like almost like a portal, was essential oils. Everybody's different, but for me, the olfactory sense, the sense of smell, all of my clair senses came into play once I found essential oils. What's interesting is I have a disability that has not allowed me to be out in nature a lot. So when I found the essential oils, it was like, oh my gosh, I have earth in a bottle now. I can have the outside inside, you know, and I can't run through a lavender field because I would sneeze for a week, but I can have a bottle of pure lavender essential oil and just almost roll in it. Like it was such an open experience for me. And the thing about the oils for me that tipped me off that this was really my tool is I began to use the oils as the oracle. So, and at one point I had a little aromatherapy shop in town, and people would come in and I would know, and almost like a medical intuitive, I would know which oil they needed, even if I didn't know what that oil was for. Like, okay, so I'm getting a hit that you need this oil. And then I would look it up. And sure enough, the description would match this person's needs. So, you know, and part of the reason that happened is because I was open to the experience. Like when my friend said, I want you to come to lunch with me and, you know, we're going to have a sniff party. We're going to have a what? No, I want you to sniff these oils. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. But I just remained open. Like, okay, is this Tupperware? What are we doing here? But it became my tool. It became my tool of choice, and it still is. So my Oracle deck, you know, 49 journal prompts for soul play, 49 journal prompts for soul study. We recommend an oil for each chakra, a crystal. All the elements, you know, we're talking about all the things. Like, here's an affirmation. Here, it's not just here's the card. It's okay. Let's do some contemplative writing. So you were talking about meditation. I just want to share this. For me, meditation, and for other cultures, meditation can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes of anything. The key is to make it intentional. Most of my meditative time is in doing self-Reiki, applying Reiki to myself, which takes me about 12 to 20 minutes in the morning. But there's another form of meditation that I'm becoming endeared to, and that is contemplative writing. So what I recommend people do if they use journal prompts or they use affirmations is to take that affirmation or that journal prompt, or even if you have a question that you're asking yourself, pen to paper, 5 minutes. Don't lift the pen. Just let the words come out. Just flow, absolute flow. At the end of 5 minutes, stop. Then take that same prompt, and if you have an essential oil, use the oil and do 5 more minutes. What I found is the first 5 minutes is cognitive, you know, what we're thinking, what we're you know, the cognition, the resonance, the concreteness of the situation. Then when we add an oil to it, it's the sensation, it's the feeling, it's the spiritual piece. That in itself is a form of meditation. So for those of us that don't want to sit quietly for 5 minutes, there are other ways to do that.
Wow.
I still love the earth in a bottle.
Yeah.
I'm captivated by that phrase. That's the best thing. That's the best way I've ever heard essential oils explained. That really captures it. That is fabulous. I'm gonna borrow that line from you.
You're welcome to. I mean, it's true. I mean, oils have a frequency. Yeah. It's like when you open the bottle of oil, the aura of the oil comes out of the bottle, like, you know, the genie. I dream of genie. And then when that aura matches, the aura of the oil matches the aura of your being, it can be a most incredible experience. And of course, there are medicinal uses for the oils as well.
And what I find really interesting too, we talk about, you know, we're always in this ongoing learning process. You know, we're the eternal students. And what I find, and it sounds like you have the same thing that comes to you, is the more we learn and the more we expand our knowledge in all these areas, essential oil, herbs, non-traditional medicines, I think the more our collective will utilize that information in us to try to help and heal others and give them that information. Like I'll give you an example. I didn't know about magnesium and how magnesium can help with the heart and heart palpitations and a number of different things around that. And anyone out there, if you're dealing with heart palpitations or there's some heart trouble, magnesium is a very, very powerful tool for that. So what is it, Q10, I believe, too.
Okay.
But the magnesium, I had that come through for a client of mine, and that's I'm like, look at, and I had just researched that. Well, my wife had researched it, turned me onto it, and I've always experienced slight heart palpitations my whole life, and not realizing, well, it was probably a magnesium deficiency. And when I started taking it, the heart palpitations went away and never came back as long as I utilized it. I had a client, same thing. She was concerned about her health. And she was asking me, okay, the reading was kind of finishing up. And she said, can you just kind of scan me, read my aura psychically, kind of tune in and just let me know if you see anything or what's going on? And immediately my collective told me, talk to her about magnesium. Mention magnesium, and magnesium needs to be confirmed. And so that's what I knew they were talking about heart. And that's when I said, well, obviously the concern and what I'm being shown is your cardiovascular system around your heart. And it's showing me magnesium being very positive. And she's like, you wouldn't believe this. She's like, I just picked up a bottle of it this morning. I'm like, well, there you go. There's your confirmation. So I do believe our collective will utilize those new tools and that new knowledge, to heal others. Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing that's happening when all those pieces come together, it is synchronicity.
Yeah.
Which is meaning, those meaningful moments of coincidence, which are not coincidence.
No, yeah.
And I say to people, the best way to grow your intuition is to track your synchronicities. If you can track your synchronicities and you see the synchronicities happening around you, then you know you're on your path. And sometimes
my question was, I just want to say, it's so funny. Here's synchronicity. My question I'm waiting to ask you is, all your knowledge to go about how to explore your abilities. And here you are. You just answered my question. Yeah.
And it can be as simple as, you see number sequences, 1111, 777, 444. For years, I woke up at 444 every night. I'm like, what is that? And finally, you know how I found out? I Googled it. Oh, the angels are watching. Isn't that lovely? But again, just tracking the big ones and the little ones. And like the way I use an oracle deck is I pull a card every day. Sometimes I pull it and it's like, okay, that doesn't seem to fit anything. But I sit with it for 24 hours. And I keep a journal. And so, okay, what came out of that message that I read 24 hours ago? What has fallen out from that message over the course of my day? And it's amazing. It is just amazing how many of those synchronicities happen with all of us every day. We just have to be awake and pay attention.
It's a process. We have to allow that process to unfold. You know what I'm really curious about, because you with your extensive background in psychotherapy and more of a traditional mental role, what overlaps and what are you seeing kind of blending together in the realm of spirituality, psychic abilities, intuition, and how is that working in conjunction with like traditional psychotherapy?
Some would say very carefully. So, and I say that as well. So if there are any therapists out there listening, please know that you do have a scope of practice. And I respect that scope of practice. I was the ethics chair for my counseling association for 2 states, New York and Georgia. So I get ethics. I'm the ethics queen. But there are some of these tools that we can use with therapists, with clients in session. The thing is, especially when I went to school in my graduate program for counseling, we were not encouraged to talk about spirituality at all, which seems completely and totally absurd to me. And by the way, if they don't want me talking about spirituality with my clients, they need to remove Carl Jung from the program, because Carl Jung was one of the founding fathers of psychotherapy.
Absolutely, yep.
And he, so much of what we do is grounded in his work. So, that's always my joke. Like, okay, well, if we're not supposed to talk about this, why are you teaching it? Okay. So now we're at a point where, at least for most of the codes of ethics that I've followed over the past 5 to 10 years, the social workers, the psychologists, the counselors, the psychotherapists, the marriage and family therapists, all of their codes of ethics now say you must have cultural and spiritual religious awareness. We need spiritual literacy if we're going to be good therapists. Okay? So that doesn't mean that my client walks in the room and I say, would you like to pull a card today?
Yeah.
No. It does mean, though, that I'm listening for the implicit and the explicit spiritual information that the client is bringing into the room. It may be an existential crisis, or it may be a literal piece of information like, I use affirmations every day as part of my spiritual practice, or I read the Bible every day as part of my spiritual practice. As counselors, we don't need to ignore that. And if I have a client that would say, I use oracle decks, I see you have an oracle deck on your shelf, can we do that? Absolutely. Okay? So I teach a course for therapists, coaches, and healers about my oracle deck. What I tell therapists is, I can do an intuitive reading, right? But when we're working with clients, we want to use the cards as a projective tool, and that's what Carl Jung would have done. We don't want to do prescriptive or predictive readings. We want the client to become empowered with the message on their own from the card. That doesn't mean that I'm not using my intuition, and it doesn't mean that I might not say to a client, what's coming up for me as you say this is XYZ. Does that ring true for you? Etc. But yes, we can use these tools. We just have to use them appropriately within the framework of psychotherapy, of that license, of, and everything about a scope of practice is evidence-based. Well, evidence-based doesn't mean cognitive behavioral therapy. There are other practices that are out there that are evidence-based. So did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by that. So it's pretty amazing. So I guess to follow up with that question, any psychotherapists that we have out there that are listening or wanted to explore this and they find it interesting, what would be your suggestion for a way for them to try to blend or be open to that or start to incorporate that into the work they're doing?
Well, it depends on the tool they want to use, but I teach a 6-hour online course on incorporating essential oils into psychotherapy practice, how to do that ethically. My Oracle deck course is 30 hours, and it's all about incorporating all of the tools, not just the deck, but the contemplative writing, the use of affirmations, the journal prompts, the whole, what is a labyrinth? How can we use a labyrinth in our life if we don't have one in our backyard? We can trace. Balancing right-left brain thinking so that we're going about our day and our work with equilibrium, balancing the chakras, understanding what the chakras represent. It's a huge course with a lot of goodness.
Yeah, that sounds great. So anyone out there that wants to check out Dr. DeeAnna's stuff, it's DeeAnna. It's DeeAnnaMerzNagel.com. So they can find you there, and anyone that wants to research this information or find more about it, I'm fascinated by it. I was on the website earlier, and I just have to say, your website's fantastic.
Oh,
It really
thank you.
is. It's a really good website. So anyone out there, jump on it and check it out, because I was going through some of the stuff and I was like, wow, this is really nice.
That's funny that you say that. Talk about, now this is synchronicity, because I needed that validation. If any of you are solopreneurs, you have a website and somebody's going to email you and say your website sucks, you need to redo it, right? And I can do it for you for a small or a large fee. Well, I get that all the time. And so I recently had updated my shopping cart and some of my other stuff behind the scenes. And so the woman that I hired, I said, she does websites. I said, do I need to revamp my website? And she's like, why would you try to fix something that's not broken?
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right. And so that was a couple of weeks ago, and now you're saying that. So I appreciate that, because I'm always thinking, oh, is it flashy? Is it this? Is it that? No, it's me. That's what it is. It's me. It represents me.
I like it as well. I have to say something. I really like it as well, and I wanted to ask you, DeeAnna, how does this creativity come through? I mean, obviously, you have this creative sense. You were a singer and you were a performer, and here you've now kind of incorporated your creativity, or you have incorporated your creativity as a psychotherapist. Do you have do you get visions about which direction to move into, or is it like the flashing light that you said initially, where you saw these words, Reiki, learn online? How are you moving now? Because you've really, really activated so much of your intuitive senses, and you are claircognizant. How is it coming through to you now? Are you still receiving more of a journey to move forward on?
I think most of it's coming through my writing, and I can think about writing something and sleep on it, and I'm writing while I'm sleeping, which is probably why sometimes I wake up tired, because I've written a whole chapter while I'm sleeping. How lovely.
Wow.
I mean, and I'm grateful for that gift. So, and a lot of that, I think, is a channeling process. If somebody says I need 500 words, I can literally write that in 10 minutes. It's not a thing. And I also want to say that my gift, one of my gifts as I teach, I don't have all the knowledge. I don't pretend to have all the knowledge. I pull. There's so much knowledge out there. I pull. My gift is that I can curate information. Right? So if I'm teaching my course on the Oracle deck is a course about my deck. But if you take my coaching course, you're not reading my book on coaching. I might have a book on coaching, you might read an article by me, but you're reading a plethora of information from the people that have founded coaching, who are bigwigs in the coaching field, and I'm just really good at putting all that together. Mary, when you took my intuitive course, it wasn't all my stuff. You were reading articles that I had pulled and curated from the internet that I thought were, key pieces for people to understand.
I remember. It was fascinating. I remember, now that you're saying that, as soon as you started referring to that, I remember very vividly how it was so helpful. Everything you pulled was, and there was books that we had to purchase for it, and you have great courses. You have great courses. So you have to become an intuitive coach. And what are some of the other courses you have? And I'm going to ask you if we can bring on anyone and you give some kind of guidance or reading, or would you want to do that tonight? Would you feel comfortable?
I'm happy to pull some cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm sure our listeners are very happy.
Well, we
There's
have
lots of
callers.
lots of
We
smiles
we
out
have a
there.
bunch of callers holding. So I
yeah,
just thought
well,
I don't want to assume anything when we have guests, and I didn't get a chance to actually have a verbal conversation with you or even mention it. But here I am in the moment. If you said you're not interested, that would be fine too. I just thought.
yeah, no, I'm fine with it. I want to give the disclaimer that in the role that I'm working in tonight, I am not working as a therapist. To be clear about that, because that's an entire informed consent contractual relationship that's not happening here. So it's for entertainment purposes only.
Yes, audience, that is our disclaimer. Entertainment purposes only.
Okay, so let me grab someone, and then before you leave this evening, I'd like you to share some of your courses. Okay, so here, let me grab this person. Hi, who's calling? This is Mary, Michael, and DeeAnna.
Huh?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. This is Khalil.
Hi there.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Can you give us that name slowly one time? There was a lot of background noise there. Couldn't completely make out what you were saying.
Khalil.
Khalil.
Hey,
Khalil. Where are you calling in from?
Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh, all right, cool. Good deal. So have you been listening so far to our discussion?
Yeah, I have.
All right, excellent. Well, you are the lucky first person tonight. We'll get some cards pulled from Dr. DeeAnna. What's the question? Do you have a specific question or a specific area you want Dr. DeeAnna to focus in on, or what exactly?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Give us that question and then.
Simba moved. My cat was in the way. But basically, I have a question about me going to the September 11th memorial thing in Chesapeake, Virginia. Will I be able to go to that?
Okay, so the cards don't really do yes or no.
Yeah, that's kind of a lot of variables in that.
Right? I can ask, what does Khalil need to know about this trip on September 11th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I need to know.
Okay, so I did a 3-card spread, and the first card represents what Spirit wants you to know regarding the question at hand. So what do you need to know about September 11th, this trip?
If I'll meet a bunch of people from around the country there, because it's going to be in Chesapeake, Virginia.
Okay. So Spirit says what you need to know about this trip is the card that came up is called Feet in the Dirt. All right.
Feet in the dirt.
Feet in the dirt. That is your root chakra. And it's all about nature, roots, and connectedness. Plant your feet in the dirt. Connect to Mother Earth. Go for a walk in the forest. Forest bathing is so soothing for the soul. While you're in the forest, pay attention to how the roots of the trees intertwine in a perfect connectedness. Okay, that has to do with the friends you potentially will be with.
Okay.
Place your hands on the tree's trunk. Feel yourself being one with nature. So I'm sensing that this is going to be a nature trip of some sort, that you're going to be outside and you're going to be with people. That's all about connectedness.
Yeah.
And it came in reverse. Okay, so some readers say if it comes in reverse, it's a negative message. We don't view it that way. If it comes in reverse in our deck, it just means it's not. You need to consider the shadow side of this. So
shadow.
The shadow side, which is the stuff in us that we need to work on, the fears, the dark. It's not bad because we all have it. But the journal prompt is describe the times you feel disconnected from nature and consequently disconnected from others. So this opportunity that you potentially are going to is an opportunity for connectedness with your friends, with people, with yourself, and with Mother Earth, with Mother Gaia.
Okay.
Okay? The second card that came up is, again, root chakra, healing waters. And this second card represents what actions do you need to take right now. And it says hydrate, soak, and replenish. Keyword here is replenish. So our bodies are approximately 60% water. We not only survive but thrive because of the healing power of water. Using water to rinse off the events of the day, warm yourself up, cool yourself down, or simply soak in the minerals that nature provides us can soothe your soul, calm your nerves, and nourish your body. Let water replenish your spirit. And I have a feeling you know what that means.
Yeah.
You know this connection, this connection to water, whether it's literal or symbolic. And the journal prompt, this also came up in reverse. So the journal prompt is, what is your soul thirsty for?
Are you asking?
I'm saying that's a journal prompt for you to consider. Like,
okay.
And you might, to hear those journal prompts again, you might listen to this recording again, and then, actually do the 5-minute exercise I talked about. Okay? And then the third card is conclusion, which is if you put your feet in the dirt, you pay attention to the healing waters, what happens after that? What is the outcome? And the outcome is sacred.
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Sorry about that. I thought you were asking me a question. Sorry about that.
No. So the card that came up is sacred evolution. And the image on the card is a unilome. So this is about unfolding, remembering, rejoining. So you're rejoining with people that you know. And the unilome shows you the path is unfolding before you. You came into the world to discover your innate talents and gifts. This involves navigating twists and turns, ultimately remembering and rejoining your highest and truest self. The journey is one of continuous movement toward enlightenment. And the journal prompt for you to consider later is, what next steps would you like to take? All right, so to me this says, I'm not going to answer whether you're going or not. Because whether you go or not, you can still consider all the things the cards say.
Right.
And these cards are saying that reconnection to your people, to your tribe, to yourself, and to the earth, to the water that replenishes us, all of that is very important because it's part of your own sacred evolution. Does that make sense? Does that resonate?
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
good.
So much information just came through. Thank you so much for calling in, and have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Wow, that was a great example of the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really did capture the essence of his question. Yeah.
And I've learned to trust that.
Are you up for doing one more reading, or?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So we'll bring on one more caller.
Okay. I have a bunch holding. So I just pick random. I don't even screen. So let's see. Hi. Who's this?
Oh, hey, hello. This is Tim calling from New York. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, what's going on,
from
Tim?
New York. Hello.
Hi there.
Yeah. Hey.
So what do you want to...
Sure, I was calling to see what Spirit just had for me. I'm working on bringing some abundance and new things in. I've been getting out to the park in the morning, just grounding, doing some deep breathing. So any tips or messages, greatly appreciated.
Okay. Anything specific, or just general, what do you need to know?
I guess nothing specific. I'm trying to figure out a new job and just strengthen some family bonds.
Okay. So I'm going to ask, what does Tim need to know about his current situation and his, where that's leading him? How's that?
think that's the best.
Okay. So the first card is, this is what Spirit wants you to know, Fields of Gold. And this is about your aura. This is the crown chakra, it's transcendence. This is about your aura, illumination, radiance. You have a luminous energy field or aura that radiates from your inner being. Just as illuminating as a lustrous field of gold wheat on a sunny day, your chi, or your life force, is brilliant and far-reaching. This glowing essence comes from divine source and emanates from your higher self. Bask in the warmth of this life-giving energy. The affirmation is, my energy field is luminous. And this card came in reverse. So what this card is, so the soul study prompt is, describe a time when you would have benefited from allowing the light to come in. So there's a reason why there's the picture on the card is actually a field of wheat. Okay? You're telling me you're taking these walks in the morning in the sun. You've got light all around you. Allow that light to come in. Allow source energy to come in. That's what this card is about. Because when you allow that light to come in, the journey before you is going to make a lot more sense. Does that resonate?
Yes, it definitely does.
Okay. Then the second card is, what are the steps you need to take? This is actually heart chakra. Heart chakra is where we give and receive love. And the name of the card is Dog Days. And there's actually a little picture of a dog being petted on the nose. Loyalty, companionship, and presence. Dogs are by nature loyal companions. When dog shows up for you, it's a nudge to return to present moment awareness and show appreciation and gratitude for the people or pets in your life who are loyal and steadfast. It's also a good time to assess where your loyalties lie and how these relationships serve you and those involved. This came in reverse. The reverse journal prompt is, you have remained loyal to a person, a job, an ideal, when that loyalty no longer served you. How can you learn to let go in those situations? So this card is saying you've been loyal to something, somebody, some concept, and it may not be serving you anymore. This card is also about boundaries. I'm sensing it's probably about a relationship.
Definitely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the final card, if you let the light in, you pay attention to your boundaries, then what happens is card number 21, which is I Will Fly Away. And it's literally a picture of a cage with the door open and the bird flying out. And it's about accountability, freedom, and responsibility. This is the throat chakra. Throat chakra is all about our truth, our personal truth. Taking responsibility lets the caged bird free. Sometimes it feels like you just want to fly away from everything and dodge duty. In actuality, when we accept what we are responsible for, we experience personal freedom that causes us to sing in celebration. And the journal prompt is, when has taking responsibility complemented your authentic voice? And my sense of this is that this is about you taking responsibility for you. Okay. And not so much everybody else. Does that resonate?
That definitely resonates.
Okay. I hope that was helpful.
Very helpful.
Thank you so much for calling in tonight, Tim. And you can listen to this broadcast after it's over if you want to go over all the points and the cards that she just relayed to you. And we appreciate you listening to Two Psychics. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
And I think the cool thing for any of our listeners out there that are interested in actually seeing what the cards look like, or what visually Dr. DeeAnna was looking at when she was giving you the reading, is that all on your website? Can they actually see the cards, or can someone purchase that deck through your website, or what's the deal with that?
Essential Soul Care is the name of the deck. It's on Etsy and it's on Amazon. It's also on an app called Deckable, which is on, it's a phone app for people who don't want the actual, physical deck. So just Google Essential Soul Care and it's going to come up.
No, very cool. I'm sure lots of people will find that very interesting.
Yeah, thank you for giving me that opportunity. That was fun.
DeeAnna, I just would like to share with you that while you were giving those readings, or this last one, it came through to me in regard to you. So I sense that these cards are prophetic. And I know that you don't, I don't know if you do psychic readings, but these cards are actually giving predictions. And I love them. I also received that for me, and I'm sure for other listeners out there, that your voice expands my abilities. There's something in a quality in your voice that is expanding, because there's so much. I know it's not just the depth of your voice, but do you have some kind of show, or are you going to do tapes, or some kind of? Do you do voiceovers?
It's that singer in her. It's the singer.
Yeah,
I know it's
no,
the
I
singer,
don't.
but there's something else there. That's what I'm receiving about you. You should consider doing voiceovers.
Do an ebook. You could do it in your voice.
Yes, something.
Well, I did spend a lot of years just, I have online courses now, but I spent many years, for years it was singing, and then for years it was going around the country and literally talking all day, teaching. So, yeah.
But they're on radio. There's something about, that's just what's coming through to me, and it just came through after I quieted, because, from my end, I'm just really always trying to monitor everything throughout a show. And then when I was quiet and you were speaking, all of a sudden it just came through. And sometimes when we give readings, I get information that just comes through. But that's just what your voice expands or activates. That's why I'm saying it's you can utilize that part of you as well. Like not just on a visual written. There's your being is meant to also be spoken out there. So do a tour. Go do this. Go give speeches. Go be part of TED Talks or something.
I am doing my tour right here from my home. Seriously, like it's so like I've got my own podcast with somebody, and I'm I'm doing a monthly series every month. We're talking about our cards, and I do some clinical supervision stuff, and so I am using my voice a lot. And what you're saying resonates big time.
Okay. Well,
and matches something I was told recently. So unfortunately, I can't travel because of my disability. Otherwise, I would be on the road. And I also live with my mom. My mom lives with me, who has middle stage Alzheimer's.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I'm very fortunate that I can do this work that I love the way I do it now. And that is another synchronous part of my journey, because I wasn't thinking 15 years ago, I need to only be working from home online. But it turned out that that's what happened, and that has been a perfect fit for my responsibilities at this time.
Well, we're so grateful that you joined us this evening.
Thank you. It was very nice.
Two Psychics, episode 25, and so just go through with ways for people to reach you and what you offer. And do you do online readings? Do you only do in person when you do these with your Essential Soul Care Oracle deck? or you work with people? How does that happen?
I don't do like I used to, but I don't do, book a reading with me. I don't, but there are ways to see the students always see how we do readings, because we do impromptu Facebook groups. We have a monthly group. We have examples of readings in the course. And then, of course, I'm always doing something like this, which allows me to sometimes do a reading. But my focus right now is solely on teaching. And I want to use my voice to teach the students that are learning my deck. They're not just, they're learning the lexicon of this oracle deck. They're learning the entire spiritual cultural piece of this deck. And so that's where my focus is, if that makes sense.
Yes, well, that's your journey, and that's where you belong. And I am very appreciative because of you, I was able to move forward for myself. And I remember that from your course, you suggested, and I learned about Reiki, and I went on and I took the Reiki courses, and I too do my meditative work on myself with self-Reiki, and I also took that to doing remote Reiki with clients. So you really helped kind of take me on my journey, and I also became an ordained minister from the Reiki. I'm grateful to you, and you changed my life, and I'm sure you've
been
changed
watching
many
you.
others. Oh, you have?
Yes. And when I see your stuff, I'm like, oh, look, there she goes. I mean, that's what I love about, being able to share the goodness with people. It's, and again, I learn from every student that comes across my path. So the Oracle deck, of course, because it's new, is where my focus is. But I teach coaching. I teach spiritual coaching, intuitive wellness coaching. I teach clinical supervision and I do a lot of clinical supervision courses for therapists, licensed therapists across the United States, so that they can also teach clinical supervision. And those courses are very, for lack of a better, clinical, very theoretical, clinical, ethical, scope of practice. There's no woo in that course, but it's a very popular course that I teach. And it's funny because people will take that course from me because they read about me. And even though the course isn't going to include all that, they want to take it from me because they know I resonate with intuition and all the things. So I find that fascinating. We do find our tribe.
Well, they're all very professional courses, and I'm going to take another look at your website. I did look at it, and now that we've spoken, I'm very even more interested. And we are so grateful you joined us. And what is your website?
My
again?
Website is DeeAnna, DeeAnna, Merz, MERZ, Nagel, NAGEL.com. And again, if you Google Essential Soul Care, I will come up.
Also, what is your podcast that you have? What is that called? If people would like to hear your show.
My podcast, I partner with Cedric Spire out of Canada, and we do a podcast called Soul Portals, and he's the lead and I'm the sidecar. So he chooses mostly psycho-spiritual individuals who are leading in their own field with spiritual or psycho-spiritual tenets. So we have a variety of guests. We've had a family physician, a rabbi, a music therapist. It's very eclectic, but it's all about the spiritual piece of their vocation. Like what's the psycho-spiritual piece that has led them to the work they do? Sort of their own journey.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And
thank you.
And
thank you
I'm
so much,
wishing you well.
Dr. DeeAnna. This is a wonderful, wonderful interview. I'm so glad you came on with us, and hopefully you'll join us at some point in the future. You know, we'd love to have you back on.
That'd be great.
We would.
So you all also do readings during this 2 hour, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
We
do, but our audience got the honor of getting their readings from you tonight.
Yes, they did.
That's awesome.
And it was fascinating. We didn't want to take the emphasis off of you. It was all about you tonight, and we are very grateful. So yes, it was
nice to meet you, Michael.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much. It was a fascinating conversation, and I look forward to us talking again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, DeeAnna, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, Michael. Well,
I think our audience got a little bit of a treat. Got a little bit of a treat tonight. That was very cool. You know, I know they never know what to expect with this show. Usually, you know, what kind of readings or what's who's going to be on doing a type of reading. But that was really fascinating. You know, there was, like you said, there was so much psychic information that came through in the card deck. That's what I found very fascinating around their questions.
Yes, I loved it, actually. I loved how it was so full of spirit and the descriptions that are on the cards. I could see, and they really came through to me as very prophetic.
What was very fascinating is she got 2 male callers. Normally we have all female callers.
That's true.
I didn't. Wow, that's interesting.
I know. And you know what? We went through and no techno issues. And
no.
We are going to be back again next week, correct?
Yes.
On Thursday for episode 26. And I will be posting that by Monday and letting everyone know whether or not we have a guest or what subjects we're talking about. We do have an Arcturian channeler in August. I don't have the date, but he's very famous, and his last name's Scranton, so that should be fascinating. And I know we have Julie Clark. Maybe I'll get her for August. I hope you have a wonderful evening, Michael, and you rest up, and we'll be back again next week. Everyone, thank you for everyone who's listening, and
absolutely.
Be well. Blessings to you. I hope everyone gets out and spends some time in nature. And write down your dreams, and you can find my dream journal on Amazon. My dream journal, a personal diary of messages, signs, and symbols. And my website is MaryAmyOfficial.com, and you can reach Michael at michaeledley.com, and you can follow us on Facebook, Two Psychics Radio, and get our merchandise at Two Psychics Spread Shop. Anything you want to share before we go, Michael?
Yeah, another way to with me, and what I'm doing is Eye of the Spirits with Michael Edley on Facebook, or you can go to Eye of the Spirits with Mike Edley on Meetup. That'll have any events, anything I'm doing. You can always reach out to me if you'd like to schedule a reading, private reading, a small group, a large gallery. I'm available for all of that. If anyone is down at the Jersey Shore on Saturday, I will be doing a workshop at 3 p.m., and it's on opening to your divine gifts. So if anyone's in the area, wants to stop in and say what's up, I will be there. And that's about all, that's about all I got for tonight.
Okay, well, everyone have a great evening, and we'll be back next week, and we will take callers for psychic readings. And anyone who couldn't get through tonight and get a reading, I apologize, but we will be back again next week for episode 26 of Two Psychics. Everyone have a great night. Be well.
Have
Bye.
a good night.